the top 5 moves the Broncos should make to nail the 2025 offseason, with the last move being the most important. So first we go to free agency, which is coming up here in just a couple weeks as of February 25th, which is right now, which is this is being recording. The Broncos currently sit at 16th in salary cap, so they have about $41.7 million to work with going into free agency. So it should allow them a little bit of room to bring in some big time players to help them solidify really on both sides of the on both sides of the ball. So the first one I'm going to look at is bringing in a bona fide cornerback 2. For me, that's going to be Carlton Davis, the third, coming out of the Lions. Although the Broncos overall defense was top 10 in 2024, but they did have an Achilles heel. And their Achilles heel was that their passing yards allowed per game were 19th in 2024, and then their pass yards allowed averaged about 220.7. So while their rushing defense seemed to really hold their own weight, it seems like their passing yards, their passing defense, not so much. So the big one that they have obviously is Patrick Surtain, which is obviously arguably a top 5 cornerback in the NFL. But when you're looking at the other side, you need someone that's going to pair with him. They need a bona fide cornerback 2 that's going to play opposite, and that's where Carlton Davis is going to come in. Now, I remember that Davis was traded to the Lions by the Bucs last year after the Lions endured a multitude of defensive injuries, which we all know about. And he played fairly well with their young cornerback group. In 2024, he had a coverage grade of about 84.4 when the throws are less than or equal to about 3 seconds. So if it's less than 3 seconds, which means that your front defense is getting pressure on the quarterback, it allows them to maybe throw a little bit faster or a little sooner than what they anticipate. He has the 84.4 ranking, which means he's doing very well. He had an overall grade of about 74.5, which was 29th out of 233. He played 697 snaps. So he was 61st out of 233, and he had 2 interceptions as well. So I think easily adding Carlton Davis III as your immediate QB2 immediately shears up the passing defense, allows you to start the season with a very good matchup downfield with Davis and Surtain. So when you start looking at the money side of things, as of right now, according to Spot Checks, his market value right now is about 3 years, 41.3 some odd million, which would average salary of about $13.7 million a year. Which isn't terrible. Now there may be some abilities to play with that. I mean, I'm not a guru when it comes to how their salaries are created, but I feel like there's definitely going to be ways that they can work with him to get him to come in to the Broncos. But I think that would be a big steal for them, and being able to pair him up on the other side with a bona fide cornerback 1, I think that solidifies their passing defense and it'll definitely help them in that range. The next one, going on the other side of the ball, I think this is going to be a huge move if they can pull it off, is trading for Ramondre Stevenson from the New England Patriots. Now, the biggest thing is the biggest question is always going to be, can you get them to do it? So let's go into the reason as to why. So for the Broncos, their rushing offense was 16th overall. Now let's go over who their running back core is as is. So as of right now, their running back 1 is Jaleel McLaughlin. Might have said his name wrong. I apologize. He had 113 attempts, 496 yards. He averaged about 31 yards per game, 1 touchdown. Your running back 2 is Audric Estim. I'm messing up names right now. 76 attempts, 310 rushing yards, 23.8 rushing per game, 2 touchdowns. Your third running back, believe it or not, is your QB1, which is Bo Nix. He had 92 carries, 430 yards, 4 touchdowns, and virtually comes in as a QB1 and a running back 1. And if you're a team that wants to continue to grow their franchise and get back to glory, by being considered, a Super Bowl contending team, you don't want your quarterback 1 to be your running back 1. So being that, I think you give a call to the New England Patriots and see if they're interested. And you go after Ramondre Stevenson. he is still a workhorse. He's still a shifty running back that breaks through tackles. And yes, while he had a career high in fumbles, if you trust your coaching staff enough to clear up the fumble issue, if you can get him to come in, he would easily, by far, be your first preference, and should be your first preference, to add him as your running back one going forward. So here's the money side. So in June 2024, he signed a 4-year, $36 million contract extension. As of right now, he's obviously still under contract. So you'd have to do some maneuvering when it comes to getting the Patriots to agree to let him go. But this is something I could probably look at when it comes to, because we know that the Patriots are in a rebuild. So if you can give them a little bit of fluff when it comes to the draft ammo, if you could say, that might work out for you. So if you're looking at the Patriots, you can give them maybe the 85th overall, which is a third, a 5th round in 2026 with the ability to be a 4th round, based on Stevenson's production. And then, you agree to restructure his contract. So what you could look at is about a 3-year, $20 million, base of about $5.5 million with incentives to earn an extra maybe $1 million per year in incentives. And if you can get that to go through, if you can get the Patriots to agree to that, and you're able to bring in Ramondre Stevenson, he immediately upgrades your running back room and immediately becomes your running back one workhorse. I'm not saying you can't go into the draft and still build up, because this is a really draft heavy class when it comes to running backs, and also wide receivers or tight ends. And we'll get to that in a moment. So he'd easily come in. The Bronco has their wide receiver or their running back one solidified in that section. So that would be a huge gain for them. Going into number 3, which we just slightly tapped on to, the tight ends. It's a big tight end class, and if there's another area that the Broncos absolutely need to improve, it's with their tight ends. And with that, I think if they're smart, if they make this move, you use your number 21 overall pick and you go and get tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State. So if we're looking at Tyler Warren as a whole, he is 6'6". He's 257 pounds. He had 104 receptions. He had 1,233 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. He averaged the reception yards about 11.9. When you look at as far as like who he's going to be compared to when he comes into the NFL, there's been some comparisons with like a Freiermuth, the current tight end at the Steelers. He's a big guy. Obviously, he would play more of a receiving, almost like a big receiving tight end rather than the normal blocking tight end. It says that he has exceptional spatial awareness. He's also a former QB background, so that shines in his football IQ. So if you can bring in a big time player and get him in the draft, if he's still sitting there. Now, there are other teams, I feel like, in the first round who are also very tight end heavy, or tight end needy, I should say. But if you can grab him, I think the Penn State tight end, Tyler Warren, would be a huge steal for the Broncos, and definitely bolsters up that offense quite a bit. So going to the other side of the ball, but the same draft. Next move for me is the Broncos take Shavon Reveal Jr., cornerback, out of East Carolina with the 124th overall pick. If he's still there, I'm telling you, if they take him, he will be probably the steal of the draft. The biggest reason why he's even falling is because he is currently recovering from an injury and probably won't be available until about close to mid-season. So he would be a huge steal because I feel like he would probably be on a lot of big boards, probably within that top 50-ish range if it wasn't for the injury. And if you already have your veteran cornerback, which we've already spoken about, in place, it gives him more than enough time to get acclimated. Again, you want to keep in mind that the Broncos' passing yards allowed per game were 19th in 2024. Honestly, I feel like is what really hurt them when they got into the playoffs and they faced the Bills. They just couldn't stop the pass. And I think Shavon Reveal Jr. does that for you. His recovery speed is elite. Special team demon, showing natural feel for route combinations, and has already been compared to a Christian Gonzalez. So that would be a huge pickup if they can grab him. So all of that, and we go to the biggest move that they need to make without a doubt this offseason to have a successful one, and it's probably not going to be loved so much, I would think, but I think it's a sneaky, really good one, and I think that is signing or re-signing, I should say, Courtland Sutton. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, like, he's getting older. He's probably going to need a bigger, he's going to need like a bigger amount of money to stay, which I personally don't think so. I think if you look at what the current draft class looks at when you're looking at wide receivers, if you look at the free agency range when it comes to wide receivers, there aren't a lot of top tier receiving options right now. And I think it can be of note that Bo Nix is already starting to find his way with him. So I feel like that would be a huge move for them. And just keep in mind that just last year, he put up 81 receiving receptions, 1,081 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. He had a snap percentage of 86.4. So that means he played like 90% of the offensive snaps. So if I'm Sean Payton and the Broncos front office, I'm going to take that into consideration. His connection with Bo Nix. You want to avoid like any potential, sophomore slumps when it comes to Bo Nix. We know that happens a lot with new QBs. And you would have to think that he would be willing probably to take a bit of a discount to stay in Denver, seeing that they've made the playoffs as of recently. So as of right now, Spot Track has his current market value listed at 3 years, 68 point, to round it up, to make it easy, 68.7 mil. You're looking at an average salary of 22.8. Again, he might be able to give you a discount deal, drop that down a little bit. So what I would look at is about a 3 year 45 with a base of 15. Then you set him up basically for the next 3 years for the remainder of Bo Nix's rookie contract as his wide receiver one. And, you're good from there. It may not be a sexy move, but in my opinion, it would be an absolutely smart one. So if they can make those 5 moves, I think that really sets them up well to go into the 2025 regular season, basically fire from all safe.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.